I'm 82 years old. I didn't think I'd ever sit down and say this out loud, but here I am, mostly because there isn't much time left to pretend anymore. I used to tell myself life was long, not in a loud way, just quietly. Long enough to delay things, long enough to say later and mean it. Long enough to believe I'd circle back to what mattered when things slowed down. They never really did. I wake up early now, even when I don't need to. My body does it on its own. The house is quiet in a way that feels heavier than silence should feel. I sit at the kitchen table with a cup of tea that goes cold before I remember to drink it. And I think about how many mornings I rush through without noticing any of them. I'm not telling this to clear my conscience. That ship sailed a while ago. I'm telling it because when you get to this age, you realize the story doesn't belong to you anymore. It belongs to whoever is still in the middle of it. When I was younger, in my 20s and 30s, I wasn't careless. That's important to say. I was responsible. I worked hard. I showed up. I did what I thought adults were supposed to do. I had a job that paid the bills. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. I remember the feeling of pride when I could say I was dependable. People counted on me. That mattered to me more than I admitted. My days had a rhythm: alarm, coffee, commute, work, home, dinner, sleep. On weekends, I told myself I was resting, but mostly I was recovering just enough to start over again on Monday. There were people in my life then: a spouse, children, friends who dropped by unannounced, parents who were still alive and aging quietly in the background. I didn't ignore them, I just kept them waiting. I said things like, once this project is done, after things settle down, when I have more time. I truly believed those words. They didn't feel like lies at the time. They felt practical. I missed small things first: a school play because of a late meeting, a birthday dinner pushed to the following week, a conversation cut short because I was tired and needed to get up early. Each time I told myself it wasn't a big deal, and each time I was right. Individually, none of it mattered much. That's how it gets you. I remember my father calling me one evening. I was sitting on the couch, shoes still on, briefcase by the door. He wanted to talk about something trivial. I don't even remember what it was now. I remember feeling impatient. I remember glancing at the clock. I said, "Can I call you tomorrow?" Tomorrow came and went. So did a lot of tomorrows. When my kids were young, they used to ask if I could stay up a little later. Sometimes I did. Sometimes I said no, because mornings came early. I thought I was teaching them responsibility. What I was really teaching them was how to get used to my absence without making a fuss. They adapted. People always do. The damage didn't announce itself. It didn't show up as a crisis. It arrived slowly, like dust settling on furniture you swear you just cleaned. Relationships don't usually break with a sound. They fade. Calls become shorter. Visits become less frequent. You stop being the first person someone thinks to tell things to. I noticed it, but I didn't panic. I thought it was just life moving forward. People grow up. People get busy. That's what I told myself. By the time I was in my 40s, success had started to look the way I thought it was supposed to. Promotions, a better house, fewer financial worries. From the outside, it probably looked like I'd done things right. Inside, there was a constant low-level exhaustion. Not physical, something deeper. But I didn't have language for it then, so I ignored it. My marriage changed quietly. No big fights, no dramatic moments. Just two people sharing space, talking logistics instead of feelings. We were polite. We were civil. We were distant. I told myself that was normal. Long marriages settle into something quieter, I thought. I didn't realize quiet and empty are not the same thing, but they can look similar from a distance. Then came the losses, not all at once, one by one. My mother went first. I got the call at work. I remember standing in the hallway, staring at a framed motivational poster on the wall, while someone explained what had happened. I drove to the hospital, feeling strangely calm. At the funeral, people said things like, "At least she lived a full life." I nodded. I believed them. But later that night, I realized I couldn't remember the last real conversation we'd had. That bothered me more than the loss itself. My father followed a few years later. By then, the calls had become infrequent, obligatory, short. When he died, I felt sadness, of course, but also something sharper. The knowledge that whatever was left unsaid would stay that way forever. Time has a way of closing doors without asking if you're finished. The turning point didn't come with fireworks. It came in a hospital room, sitting next to my spouse, listening to a doctor explain a diagnosis in careful, measured tones. Illness rearranges everything. Suddenly, there is time. Lots of it. Waiting room time, appointment time, time to think. I remember thinking, for the first time clearly, we should have talked more. We did talk then, about memories, about regrets, about things we thought we'd do someday. Those conversations were honest and tender and painfully late. When my spouse died, the house felt wrong, too big, too quiet. Every object seemed to belong to a version of life that no longer existed. Friends visited at first, then less often. Everyone has their own lives. I understood that. I didn't blame them. My children called. They visited when they could. They were kind. They were loving. But they had their own rhythms now, and I was no longer at the center of them. That's another thing no one tells you. You don't fall out of people's lives. You're gently edged to the side as new priorities take up the space. Now, at 82, I spend a lot of time remembering. Not the big moments, the small ones. The ordinary afternoons I rushed through. The conversations I postponed. The hugs I cut short. I think about how often I assumed there would be more time, more holidays, more dinners, more chances to say what I felt when it mattered. There won't be. That's not a dramatic statement, it's just a fact. Time doesn't negotiate. Some things can't be fixed. You can't go back and show up more. You can't reinsert yourself into moments that have already hardened into memory without you. You can apologize, and sometimes that helps. But it doesn't give anyone their years back. I don't live in constant regret. That would be unbearable. But it's there, like an old ache that flares up when the weather changes. There is gratitude, too. I loved people. I was loved. I built a life that was stable and safe. That counts for something. But fulfillment is quieter than success, and I confused the two for a long time. If you're listening to this and you're younger, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I wouldn't have listened anyway. I'll just tell you what I wish I had known. Being busy feels important. Being present feels optional. That's the mistake. No one sits at this age wishing they'd answered more emails or stayed later at the office. They wish they'd lingered. They wish they'd listened without checking the time. Assuming there will be more time is the most expensive assumption you can make. You pay for it slowly, over decades, and you don't see the bill until it's too late to argue with it. People don't need you to be impressive. They need you to be there. If this meant something to you, sit with it for a while. You don't have to change your life overnight. Just notice where you're postponing what matters. As for me, I don't have many years left. I know that. I take my days as they come. Some are quiet. Some are lonely. Some are surprisingly peaceful. I've made my peace with what can't be changed. Acceptance isn't happiness. It's just rest. When the mornings come now, I drink my tea while it's still warm. I look out the window. I remember the people who filled my life, even if I didn't always show it well. Life was shorter than I ever admitted. I see that clearly now. I only wish I'd seen it sooner.